definitely I rise to support. Mr. Speaker, agriculture is a very important sector in our country because agriculture, the entire value chain of agriculture, accounts for 20 to 30% of our GDP. The whole value chain also accounts for 40% of the entire employment in the Republic of Kenya and 70% of the jobs in rural areas. This shows the importance at which we must attach to the agricultural sector. Mr. Speaker, also, agriculture also has many linkages, both backward and forward linkages in terms of other industries. And actually manufacturing as a sector, the basis of it is agriculture. Because most of the manufacturing that we do is value adding the produce that we get from agriculture, but also within manufacturing in terms of mechanical, agriculture also accounts for a lot in terms of the few areas that are mechanized within our agricultural sector. Mr. Speaker, we must also note that many times we confuse farming and agriculture. Farming, by all accounts, in the entire value chain of agriculture, accounts for partly 20% of the entire value chain. The value chain that includes a lot in terms of transportation, warehousing, value addition, from farm to fork. Mr. Speaker, farming or our farmers only accounts for just around 20%. And the more the reason that we must be deliberate in trying to capture as much value from the chain, and especially this value going into farmers. Because farmers work the most, they do most of the job, but of course, they don't get returns commensurate to the effort that they put. Also, in regards to the debate we have in our country around food prices, and especially maize, we must be very clear, even as a government, as a leadership, not to confuse the role of the farmer or the role of government insofar as the farmer is concerned and the role of the government in terms of the Kenyan consumer is concerned. Because if you attach these two things together, one of the party will be disenfranchised. If we assume that the role of the farmer is actually to feed Kenyans, then I think we'll be going in the wrong direction. Because the government has peculiar roles which are diverse. One of it is to make sure all Kenyans are fed, but on the other side, making sure that farmers are well remunerated. And Mr. Speaker, in economics, we usually give analogies. And one analogy is that it is not by the benevolence of the baker that we get our daily bread. It is not by the benevolence of the butcher that we get meat. It is not by the benevolence in this respect of the farmer that we get our daily meal. Mr. Speaker, it is out of the self-interest to make money that then we get unintended consequences. Though that should be left at that the farmers should be left to pursue their margins, but on the other side, the government must use other instruments to make sure that the Kenyan consumers are not paying exorbitantly for their daily meal. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the whole Kenyan infrastructure in terms of the economy, we are a net importer of food, by the way. We call ourselves an agricultural economy, but the irony is that we are a net importer of food. Mr. Speaker, also another irony is that economies that are industrial, the economies that have got robust manufacturing sectors, their people, the problem they have is actually overfeeding. That is a paradox, Mr. Speaker. That countries that actually assume the role of being agrarian based on agriculture, they can barely feed themselves. Mr. Speaker, I'm just trying to bring the point that we must cut down on our imports, because we have seen when we have increased demand in our country, this demand, instead of being filled by local production, both in terms of agriculture and manufacturing, we have been importing to fill up the gap. Therefore, we remain a country who is agrarian in terms of production, but in consumption, we are a fourth industrial. We are consuming high technology items, but on the other side of production, we are very banal and basic. Mr. Speaker, I support.
The MP for Samburu East, followed by the MP for Sotik.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.